In a world that constantly tells you to push forward, hustle harder, and get over it, this powerful episode of the Mel Robbins Podcast hits pause and pulls back the curtain on why so many of us feel lost, disconnected, and emotionally stuck. Mel sits down with legendary physician and trauma expert Dr. Gabor Maté to unpack how childhood trauma, whether big or small, can shape your entire life, from your relationships and stress responses to your health, self-worth, and sense of purpose. Together, they explore what trauma really is, how it hides in plain sight, and most importantly, how to begin healing. This is a summary of why you feel lost in life. Dr. Gabor Maté on trauma and how to heal from the Mel Robbins Podcast, where we break down the key insights, ideas, and takeaways from this content, giving you the gist so you can decide if you want the rest. The full summary is available on perfectsummary.com, your go-to for podcast recaps, book breakdowns, and video summaries that give you the gist so you can decide if you want the rest. You can listen to the Perfect Summary podcast on all major platforms or watch our content on YouTube at @officialperfectsummary. The discussion explores how trauma forms, not from what happened, but how you adapted. Why childhood needs like unconditional love, safety, and play are essential, and what happens when they're missing. The physiological and emotional ways trauma shows up later in life, how trauma gets passed through generations without us realizing it. A radically compassionate approach to healing your past and freeing your future. Trauma isn't what you think it is. We often think trauma is reserved for catastrophic events, war, assault, disaster, but Dr. Maté defines it differently. Trauma is not what happens to you. It's what happens inside you as a result of what happened to you. It's the wound, the disconnect, the emotional or physiological response that lingers. Examples of trauma you may not realize: being constantly told to stop crying, feeling unseen, unheard, or unimportant in your family, having to earn love or affection, experiencing emotional distance even if your needs were physically met. If you grew up having to adapt by being the peacemaker, the overachiever, the invisible one, you experience trauma. 1. Big T trauma. Includes abuse, violence, neglect, death of a parent, addiction, poverty, or racism. These are well-known triggers with serious emotional and physiological effects. 2. Comes from unmet emotional needs, like not feeling seen, not being allowed to express feelings, or constantly having to perform or behave to be accepted. And here's the truth: no siblings grow up in the same home. Even in the same family, different birth order, parental stress, or child temperament can create completely different emotional landscapes. You are not damaged goods. You're adapted. One of the most freeing truths in this episode is that your behaviors, reactions, and patterns aren't flaws. They're adaptations. The perfectionist, trying to be good enough to earn love. The workaholic, trying to feel important or worthy. The one who explodes or shuts down in conflict. That's your nervous system protecting you from danger it learned to expect. You're not broken. You're responding the only way you knew how at the time. What happens in the body? The physiology of trauma. Trauma doesn't just live in the mind, it wires itself into the body. Dr. Maté explains. Chronic stress raises cortisol and adrenaline, which in excess can lead to inflammation, hypertension, autoimmunity, anxiety, and depression. Trauma alters brain development, especially in children. The stress system becomes hypersensitive, primed for fight or flight. Generational trauma is real. Even if you turned out okay, unresolved pain can pass through behaviors, silence, or emotional absence. Why being strong can hurt you. Many adults, especially women, grew up in environments where survival meant suppressing their needs and becoming the caretaker, the achiever, the fixer. Mel shares that she always felt like it was her job to make everyone happy and keep the peace. This created hypervigilance, constant people-pleasing, emotional reactivity or total shutdown, a deep disconnect from her own needs. And while these behaviors helped her survive childhood, they quietly sabotaged her well-being as an adult. Healing begins with 3 steps. Dr. Maté offers a powerful, compassionate roadmap. Recognize the suffering. Notice your patterns, your stress responses, your emotional pain. Don't dismiss them. Recognize it not as weakness, but as a sign of wounding. 2. Get curious with compassion. Instead of, why am I like this? Ask, what happened that made this my default? Curiosity is the beginning of healing. It's not your fault, but it is your responsibility. Ask for help. We're born wired to seek connection, but many of us were trained to stop asking for help because help never came. It's time to unlearn that. Support is how we heal. Personal revelations from Mel's story. Mel vulnerably shares a traumatic experience in 4th grade involving an older child. Years of postpartum depression where she felt disconnected from her own baby. How her emotional volatility affected her daughters. Her struggle to ask for help and to receive affection, even as an adult. Through the lens of Dr. Maté's insights, she finally saw how her early wounds shaped her reactions and relationships. And more importantly, how to begin healing them. What healing actually looks like. Understanding your past instead of blaming it. Speaking to your inner child like a wise parent would, with kindness, boundaries, and reassurance. Learning to recognize your needs and give yourself permission to have them. Replacing shame with compassion. Returning to joy, rest, and play, because trauma strips those things away, but they are your birthright. Reclaiming play, joy, and intimacy. You were born to be playful, imaginative, creative, connected, and yet, adults often feel awkward expressing affection. Many don't know how to play with their own kids. We become serious, over-functioning, disconnected versions of ourselves. Dr. Maté says, reclaiming joy is essential, not optional. It's not about productivity. It's about remembering who you were before you had to adapt. That's a wrap on Why You Feel Lost in Life, Dr. Maté on trauma and how to heal. This isn't just a conversation, it's a doorway. A chance to see that what you've carried isn't yours to hold anymore, that your pain has a source, and your healing has a path. And that freedom isn't found in pretending it didn't happen. It's found in facing it, with compassion, curiosity, and the courage to ask for more. This summary came from PerfectSummary.com, your go-to for podcast recaps, book breakdowns, and video summaries that give you the gist so you can decide if you want the rest. You can listen to the Perfect Summary podcast on all major platforms or watch our content on YouTube at @OfficialPerfectSummary.